Hi guys, it's Just Honest Fiction and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my August wrap-up. Alright guys, so I ended up reading 8 books in August, but oh my goodness, I loved all of these books so much. August was such a great reading month for me. And there's only 8 because I'm filming this 2 weeks before the end of August because I'm going on vacation with my family. So I predict September is gonna have a very long wrap up just because there's a bunch of books that I'm like 3/4 of the way done that are gonna be featured then. But yeah, overall, I loved most of the books I read this month. There are a lot of fantasy, YA fantasy, romance fantasy, a lot from my TikTok recommendation video. There's a few thrillers and a sci-fi, so I kind of went out of my genre a little bit and I loved it. So yeah, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday, and if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit the notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram. It is linked down in the description below. And with that being said, let's get into this wrap up. Okay, so I'm gonna start off with YA fantasy. The first book I read this month was Hallow, Vows by Lexi Ryan. This is all over BookTok. It's compared to ACOTAR meets The Cruel Prince. I also did a spoiler-free review video that I'll link in the cards and the description. But this follows Bree. And Bree is a girl where some people who are down on their luck will sell their lives to fae, but Bree just wants nothing to do with that. She wants to stay clear of fairies. For some reason, she hates them. Unfortunately, her younger sister is kidnapped by the Unseelie King, so Bree has to go into the Fae area and find her. And when doing so, she ends up meeting the Seelie Prince, and they kind of form a connection. She also meets a band of misfits from the Unseelie court that help her out, and it goes from there. I loved this book so much. I talked about it a lot in another video, but it was done very well. There's a love triangle in this that is just perfect. I love both romantic partners, and I couldn't choose between them, so I don't know how Bree's gonna be able to. It was just very, very well done, and the ending in this will just blow your mind. So I highly suggest, if you're a fan of ACOTAR, Cruel Prince, and you want another Fae story, this is a great one. Next up is a new adult fantasy, and that is Savage Lands, and this is by Stacey Marie Brown. This follows Brexley, who is living in the world where Fae and humans have been battling for a very long time, and she lives in a very prosperous human territory. Unfortunately, one day she sneaks out into the Fae territory, ends up being captured, and thrown into this terrible jail where most people, or I don't think anyone, has ever made it out. And unfortunately for Brexley, she ends up having to compete in these gladiator-type trials that the prison holds in order to keep the numbers down. And she also, while she's there, meets Warwick, who is this powerful, either Fae or human, that she just feels very drawn to, and he kind of runs the entire prison, even though he's also an inmate, and it goes from there. I very much enjoyed this. I thought it was very good. It gave me a lot of prison healer vibes, and I'm not really sure why, besides the fact they're both in this very dangerous prison and have to compete in trials. But I think if you read this and you enjoyed it, I would also check out the prison healer, or vice versa, because they felt very similar while reading them. This one is definitely more gory, more sexual scenes, but overall, still very similar feels. But definitely check this out. I really enjoyed it. I'm currently halfway through book 2, and hopefully we'll be finishing the series by the end of this month. Next up, I read a contemporary romance, and that is The Bromance Book Club, and this is by Lyssa K. Adams. I thought this book was fine. It follows a guy whose relationship is going downhill, and in order to save his relationship, he joins a book club of a bunch of guys that just read romance novels. So he reads a bunch of romance novels and tries to re-court his wife, and it's cute. It was fine. I don't know if I'm going to continue with the series. It is a very quick read. I did like the main character, but some of it was just a little off the walls. I don't know. Overall, I would probably say this was my least favorite book I read this month, but still not bad. So if you want a lighthearted contemporary, I would definitely check this one out. Next up, we have 2 romances that have a little bit more steam. So the first one is Brutal Prince, and this is by Sophie Lark. This is a mafia romance that I thought I was gonna hate, and I absolutely loved, and it follows Ada and Callum. Ada is the daughter of the Italian, or someone in the Italian mafia, and she accidentally sets fire to Callum's bedroom, and in order for there not to be a full-on mafia war, the 2 heirs, or the 2 fathers, decide they're gonna marry their kids off. So Callum and Ada hate each other. Like, they're trying to kill each other for the first half of this book, but eventually they learn to see the good in each other, and it goes from there. It was so cute. There are some problematic points in this book. It's not going to be for everyone, but overall, I really, really enjoyed it. All right, this next book, I have been terrified to review since I finished reading it, just because I still haven't fully comprised my thoughts on it. Like, it was interesting, and that is Credence by Penelope Douglas. I heard this book was controversial. I think that is very accurate. I think there are people that are going to hate this book. I totally understand why, if you are someone who did not like it. Personally, I read this book in a day and a half, so there was some aspect of it that I did enjoy. However, do I ever think I'm going to reread it? Probably not. It follows Tiernan, and in the beginning of this book, both her parents have died, and she is sent off to live with her step-uncle and his children. Now, Tiernan is dealing with trauma. She had a very privileged life, but also she was very lonely, and the first half of this book is really just her finding herself again and trying to heal. Now, the second half of this book is where we get into the different relationships, and she ends up having interesting relationships with each one of the people that she goes to live with. Personally, I wasn't a huge fan of the ending, but that's just me. Overall, I don't regret reading this. I did enjoy it. Like I said, I put this book down and couldn't stop thinking about it for a while. I think Penelope Douglas did something very different here, and I'm not going to rate it low. I mean, I don't rate books. I think it was an enjoyable, thought-provoking read. I just don't know if it's going to be for everyone. So I think that's how I'm going to leave it. I recommend if you want to give it a try doing so, you might really like it, and I know there are people that aren't. So I'm going to leave it at that. All right, moving into thrillers, I gave you guys the choice if I should read For Your Own Good or The House of Hallows on my Instagram. You guys were able to vote, and surprisingly, The House of Hallow won by a landslide. So that's what I ended up reading. This book was so much darker than I thought it was going to be, judging by the cover. The cover is so pretty, and you would never expect what was actually in this book. So this follows 3 girls, and when they were very young, they disappeared. I think they were 5, 7, 11. And they were gone for a month, and then they were mysteriously found, except they all had cuts along their neck jaw area, and they all had white hair. And as the children grew up, or the girls grew up, they were always starving, and they seemed to possess these powers. And yeah, so we're starting the story with the 3 girls now grown up, and one of the sisters mysteriously goes missing, and they don't know if it has to deal with what happened when they were children. Now, they have no memory of where they went for that month, so the 2 remaining sisters try to find the missing sister, and it goes from there, and they end up meeting different characters, and it was just so dark. This very much reminded me of House of Salt and Sorrow meets the end, just the last 2 chapters of Mexican Gothic. I'm guessing this is a Gothic horror. The imagery in this is very disturbing and just makes you feel very uncomfortable. The author described things absolutely beautifully and yet terrifying. So yeah, this was dark, but very good and very well paced. I was gripped the entire time. I flew through this book. I think I even said on my Instagram, this book is addicting. I could not put it down. So I highly suggest, I think this would be a perfect book to read in the fall, in the spooky season. Next up was probably one of my biggest surprises in August, because I loved this book so much. It is so out of my normal genre, and that is Into the Drowning Deep by Mira Grant. So this book takes place a few years after a group of people went out looking to do a mockumentary. So they wanted to do a mockumentary on mermaids. So they all went out thinking that they weren't going to find anything and then come back and make up footage. Unfortunately, that entire crew ended up dying, and a new crew is formed to go out and figure out what happened to the old crew. So this book is in the perspective of a lot of people in that new crew. It is done so well. It is so good and so eerie and so scary. So I loved all of the characters in this. Like I said, it's multi-perspective, but all the perspectives were just so unique. And the mermaids in this are terrifying and describe, the writing in this is very, very good. It's very easy to imagine everything the author wanted you to picture. I loved this. I highly recommend, I've been recommending this book to everyone, even people that don't love horror, and I'm it's so good. So highly suggest. It's still summer. It's still a very good time to read this book. Please read it. I really, really enjoyed it. And last up is another thriller. I read The One, and this is by John Mars. This book was very different in a good way to what I thought it was gonna be. So I don't know why. First of all, I thought this was young adult. I don't think it is. I think it is adult. But it follows, there's multi-perspectives, and someone has come out with a way to figure out who your soulmate is via their DNA. So people take a test like they would Ancestry.com in order to find out who their perfect match is. And this is like ruining relationships, but it's also allowing people to meet their significant other that they wouldn't normally be able to do. So like there's good and bad. So this book is following different perspectives. I don't think I realized, this is deep. It's very dark, the perspectives. A lot of them take some weird twists. There's one where it's a serial killer who ends up finding his potential match, and you're like, oh my God, the girl doesn't know this guy's a serial killer, like this is so harmful. And then you're also following the person who actually created or who figured out that there is a DNA that could tell you your soulmate. Then you're following a guy who ends up being matched with another guy, but he didn't realize. He thought he was straight, and then he ends up having feelings for this guy, but they're both in relationships, so it ruins their relationships with their partners. It's just intense, and I really enjoyed this. I'm very interested on seeing, I think it's been made into a TV show, now a major TV series, so yes. So I think I'm gonna check that out. I wanna see how it compares. Let me know if you guys are interested. Maybe I'll do like a comparison to the TV show, to the book, see which one I like better. I don't know, maybe. But anyway, very much enjoyed it. If you like thrillers, I think you'll really enjoy this. Alright guys, that's it for my August wrap up. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have read any of these books, please let me know down in the comments below what your opinions are. Also, if there are any books you think I should read in September, I would love to know your opinions. You can always message me on Instagram. I always check those. And I said this already, but I post new videos every Thursday and Sunday, and I'll see you all next week. Bye.